Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and completely flip how you visualize the transportation system running throughout your body. Most of us, we just think of blood as that red liquid we see when we get a paper cut, right? But it's so much more complex and honestly fascinating than that. Today, we're going to reimagine your circulatory system. We're not just looking at a bunch of plumbing, we're looking at a bustling microscopic river network teeming with different vessels, all working in perfect harmony to keep you alive. But before we can even think about diseases like anemia or leukemia or how clotting works, we've got to answer a really fundamental question. What is blood actually made of? It sounds simple, I know, but the answer literally unlocks the entire foundation of hematology. If we don't understand the basic components of this fluid, we really can't understand what happens when the whole system breaks down. So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the river of blood itself. Then we'll look at the formed elements, which will break down into our cargo ships, military ships, and rescue ships. And finally, we'll wrap up with the clinical connection.
All right, part one, the river of blood, exploring that liquid environment.
Blood is basically broken down into just two major buckets. You've got plasma on one side and formed elements on the other. That is the big picture. If you take a sample of blood and spin it down in a centrifuge, it separates perfectly into these two distinct layers. And getting a handle on this two-part division is really your first step to mastering how blood functions. Let's zoom in on that first component. I want you to think of plasma as the mighty river itself. It's the liquid soup where all the cellular components swim and travel. It's the fluid environment, the waterway that makes absolutely all transportation possible. Without plasma, well, the cells would just be stranded. There'd be no flow, no delivery, and basically no life. So whenever you hear the word plasma, picture this liquid environment carrying your vital day-to-day supplies around the body. Now, it's mostly water, sure, but think about what else is floating in this river. You've got proteins, electrolytes, vitamins, nutrients from your food, hormones sending signals, and even waste products heading out for disposal. It is the ultimate transport medium. Moving on to part two, formed elements. These are the cellular components. So the formed elements are simply the actual cells in your blood. And to easily memorize this fleet, just remember the letters R, W, P. That's red cells, white cells, and platelets. These are the physical structures, the actual ships traveling down that river of plasma we just talked about. And each one has a highly specialized, absolutely critical mission. Let's look at part three, our cargo ships delivering the goods. The crucial point to grasp here is that red blood cells act like massive cargo ships. They pick up oxygen from the ports of your lungs and deliver it way downstream to tissues all over your body. And get this, a single drop of blood contains millions of these cargo ships. Millions! And once they drop off their oxygen payload, they don't just return empty-handed. They actually load up on carbon dioxide and transport it back toward the lungs to be exhaled. So whenever you hear the acronym RBC, your brain should immediately just think oxygen cargo. But what happens when this fleet struggles? Well, if there aren't enough red blood cells, or maybe they lack the hemoglobin protein to actually hold the cargo, the direct result is anemia. Low red blood cells equal low oxygen delivery, which essentially means your body's tissues are starving for air. All right, part four, the military ships defending the river. I absolutely love this memory trick, and it's something I really want you to burn into your brain. When you hear WBCs, white blood cells, think of them as the warriors. While the red cells are busy delivering cargo, the white cells are the military escorts. They're the police force navigating the river, providing essential, heavy-duty defense for your entire body. These military ships are constantly on patrol, protecting our river from harmful microscopic invaders. Whether it's a bacterial infection trying to take hold, some rapidly multiplying virus, or even fungi and parasites, your white blood cells are the frontline warriors tasked with neutralizing that threat right away. Which brings us to part five, the rescue ships, plugging the leaks. To put it super simply, platelets plug the leak. Their major job is stopping bleeding. If the riverbank, meaning your blood vessel, takes damage, you don't send cargo ships, and you definitely don't send military ships. You send the repair crew. Platelets are these tiny, highly reactive rescue ships that rush straight to the scene of a structural failure. This rapid response repair system is called hemostasis. Step 1, the vessel gets damaged. Step 2, the rescue ships, our platelets, rush in and literally physically stick to the damaged area. And then step 3, they aggregate together to form a solid plug, patching the dam and stopping the blood loss. The whole thing happens incredibly fast, which is exactly why minor cuts can stop bleeding in just a couple of minutes.
Now for part 6, the clinical connection, diagnosing fleet failures.
This is where all of this comes together in a real-world setting. If a patient presents with decreased oxygen and fatigue, well, you immediately know it's a cargo ship problem, a lack of red blood cells. What about recurrent infections? That points directly to a military ship failure, meaning decreased white blood cells. Petechia, which are those tiny spots of bleeding under the skin, means your rescue ships are missing. In general fluid or pressure issues, those tie right back to the river itself, the plasma. By categorizing blood this way, making a diagnosis becomes highly logical.
Let's lock this all in with a final rapid-fire recall. Plasma is the liquid river. Red blood cells are your cargo ships. White blood cells are your warriors. And platelets are your rescue crew plugging the leaks. Remember RWP, Red Warriors Plugs. If you can keep that in mind, you have completely mastered the fundamental composition of blood.
So now that you hold the foundational map of hematology and you know exactly who is sailing on this river, you really have to wonder about the sheer, mind-boggling scale of this bustling transportation system keeping you alive every single second. Think about it for a second. You have tens of trillions of these ships navigating tens of thousands of miles of microscopic rivers inside you, right this very moment. How does the body coordinate this massive fleet without causing massive traffic jams? Well, that is a fascinating question, and one we are definitely going to have to explore in our next explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.